Welcome to Nirvana, your trusted partner in sports travel, supporting athletes and event organisers for over 25 years.
Nirvana, I can't recommend them enough. We are staying in a beautiful hotel, got amazing travel, all being totally stress-free.
The guys at Nirvana have got me to pretty much every single race that I've done in my career, safe and sound and ready to perform on the day.
It's total peace of mind that anything you need, whatever, whenever, they'll hold your hand.
Nirvana is with you every step of the way.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, friends, thank you for the opportunity to speak today about my candidacy for President of World Triathlon. I have a clear vision, and that vision is that everyone should be inspired by triathlon. I've been involved in this sport for over 40 years, since 1983, when I took part in our first national championships. Wetsuits were actually banned, and we had to cover ourselves in goose fat to stay warm in the lake. And if anyone's interested, I've still got a pot of goose fat in my room. Since 1983, I've been involved in every aspect of this wonderful sport, and I still compete. In fact, I recently qualified for next year's World Championships in Wollongong, so one way or another, I shall be there. Mr. President, your board has asked me to address 3 questions, and I will tackle them now because I think they're clearly very important to every national federation in this room. And the first concerns decentralization. I am totally in favour of a decentralised model for continental confederations where they have demonstrated the maturity and the competence to help national federations, in particular smaller national federations, grow stronger. We want strong national federations of every size, not just big ones. This is not about continental confederations having a separate legal entity. It is about showing a willingness to generate additional revenue and to grow our sport. Some continental confederations are still a long way from being in that situation. So for them, it is a different model where they can be more closely supported by World Triathlon. But I do believe, and it's in my manifesto, that all continental confederations need more support from the centre, and in the long run they will all reach a point of much greater independence and impact. To get there, I envisage a sort of menu agreed with each continental confederation in the annual development agreement, with some compulsory items and some optional items, depending on how advanced the Continental Confederation is. If a Continental Confederation achieves all its agreed objectives, it will then be given more choice of what to take and what not to take the following year. And this is how decentralization can really drive the growth of our sport. I would like to see full-time, competent Secretary Generals in all continents funded by World Triathlon, who have spent time in headquarters with Gergely and Zita, and who understand the most important tools for growth, particularly everything around the holding of successful events, from national championships and development cups upwards. And this includes adjacent training courses for technical officers and coaches too. So in summary, yes to decentralization where appropriate. I do expect the continental confederations to do more to help smaller national federations and to grow the sport generally. And yes, I see World Triathlon and the continental confederations sharing an obligation to generate additional funding. So, Mr. President, let me address your board's second question on events. If as in Europe, a continental confederation can organise a continental championships of a quality on a par with that of a World Series event, which has been successfully done in Glasgow, Munich and elsewhere, then it should, subject to the budget working out, be incorporated in the World Series. And of course, World Triathlon should lend all support to each continent to achieve that. And by the way, the level of support needs to be agreed well in advance with the local organising committee and carefully documented. We will have to look at sprint or super sprint with heats and semis to accommodate the right number of athletes in some of these events so that local athletes don't lose out. But there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, that's part of the future. New, exciting formats. It can and really should be done. And of course, new formats of that kind with better geographical distribution will also make our events more attractive to spectators and viewers and hence to our sponsors. So this will drive the growth and financial sustainability of our sport. And on this crucial subject, I want to highlight two of my most important pledges. The first is to increase participation in our sport globally by 50% over the next 5 years. And secondly, to double development spending from next year onwards. To achieve these goals, we need more money. By making our events more global and more exciting with new formats, better informed commentators, and better data, I am absolutely confident that we can generate more sponsorship and media income for our sport to pay for it. Environmental sustainability. Environmental sustainability is also extremely important. We need to find ways to reduce intercontinental travel and have a serious look at what is required to achieve net zero. But we also need to focus on our own very specific challenge of water quality and fight for cleaner water. And in the meantime, we need to be much more careful about where we agree to hold our events. It is simply not good enough to say, if the water's bad, we'll have a duathlon. That is the quickest way to give our sport a bad reputation, and it will not happen on my watch. We also need to look at the testing technologies now available to see if we can reduce the testing time, and we need to look at the protocols and procedures for making decisions on whether to swim and when and how we communicate any decisions not to swim to all concerned, especially to our athletes, but also to our spectators and fans. Our athletes, and I include all our athletes, elite, para and age groupers, they care about water quality and the environment, and we need to ensure that we don't let them down and that they buy into what it is that we're doing. Never forget that without the goodwill of our athletes, our sport has no future. The last question, Mr. President, referred to success. Let me say this. If you can't measure it, you can't manage it. Our current strategy is full of the right ideas, but it actually lacks measurable objectives. And that's why I have set clear, measurable targets for growth. Growth in participants and growth in development funding. So let me be very clear about what success will look like under my presidency. Success will look like absolute growth in participation underpinned by more events, more coaches, and more technical officers. Success will look like more revenue being spent on more development funding with a focus on smaller national federations to drive the global growth of our sport, with funding being distributed in a fair and non-political way. Success will look like a new culture of working together in total transparency, not against each other, open discussions, healthy challenge, minutes of meetings that are published on the website. No political factions. Absolutely no political factions. We all want the same thing. We cannot allow language or ethnicity to divide us. In fact, we should all love each other. Debemos amarnos unos a otros. Wir sollen uns lieben. Nous devrions nous aimer. Amen. That's the worst. I actually have a French grandmother and I still can't. Merci. Hey. I've referenced the need to change the culture and governance of World Triathlon in my manifesto. I hope you've all got my manifesto, by the way. If you haven't, please let me know, and I'll send it to you afterwards. Governance is not just about box ticking. It is about the executive board and staff all adopting common values and genuinely living them. I'm going for 15 minutes, Chris, because I'm covering all the... Yeah, is that okay? Directors have a duty to support and challenge, and whilst we're good at supporting, we're not always very good at challenging. If proposals are not discussed fully and challenged, they are typically not of the highest quality. Another aspect of working together better is listening. Too many decisions are being taken against the wishes of the athletes. Transgender being a topical example. We have to listen to our athletes more, and also to you, our members, our national federations. Beyond that, closer collaboration with the major event organisers is also crucial if we're to grow this sport. All boats rise on an incoming tide. And by the way, I already know all of the key players in event organisation because most of them are headquartered in London. Creating the right culture requires experience, and I think I'm the right person to do this job because I've done this before. Not just in sport with the British Triathlon Federation, but also in the commercial sector. Being a successful president is not something that just anyone who has sat on a federation board can do. It requires repeated experience of being a chair. My record shows that I have done it before and I can do it again. In addition to the British Triathlon Federation, I have chaired 4 successful commercial organisations, and all of them have been transformed successfully under my leadership. So, leadership through strategic thinking, positive collaboration, and constructive engagement is part of who I am. And it is this mindset that will underpin my entire approach as President of World Triathlon. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, I hope I've given you some clarity on my vision for President of our International Federation. If you have further questions, I'll be available from 9 o'clock tomorrow morning in the foyer to discuss them with you. And it will take as long as it takes. If you haven't had the manifesto, please let me know. So to conclude, while we are not in terminal decline as a sport, I know deep down that we can, as custodians of this sport, and we should be doing much, much more to become a mainstream sport globally. World Triathlon needs to move up a gear. We have enormous potential, and with your support, I would be a president with the vision and the drive and the determination to unlock that potential. Thank you.